Welcome to Royal Secret. We pull back the gilded curtain of Denmark's beloved monarchy, a family draped in centuries of tradition, but now caught in the firestorm of a deeply personal divide. Why is Prince Joachim, the younger son of Queen Margrethe II, speaking out with raw honesty? What silent struggles lie beneath the polished image of the Danish royal family? And how has his relationship with his brother, now King Frederik, shifted from fraternal closeness to emotional estrangement? In this exclusive report, we delve into the tension unraveling within one of Europe's oldest royal houses. This is not just about royalty, it's about family, identity, and the pain of feeling sidelined by the very institution you were born to serve. To understand the emotional shockwave currently rocking the House of Glucksburg, we must rewind to where it all began. The Danish monarchy is one of the oldest in the world, with a lineage dating back over 1,000 years. Revered for its simplicity, transparency, and the humility of its royal members, it has long stood as a symbol of national unity in Denmark, a country often described as one of the happiest on earth. At the heart of this monarchy stood Queen Margrethe II, a modern monarch in every sense. Ascending the throne in 1972 as Denmark's first female sovereign under new constitutional laws, she was loved for her intellect, artistic talent, and deep commitment to her people. From her marriage to French diplomat Count Henri de Laborde de Montpezat, two sons were born, Crown Prince Frederik and Prince Joachim. To the public eye, they were brothers raised with privilege and purpose, destined to represent their nation with dignity. But behind palace gates, dynamics often more closely resemble any ordinary family, complete with rivalries, favoritism, and the ache of unmet expectations. As children, Crown Prince Frederik and Prince Joachim shared a home, a heritage, and a destiny shaped by the monarchy. But as they grew older, their paths began to diverge, subtly at first, and then more starkly. Frederik, the heir apparent, carried the weight of the crown's expectations. Groomed to lead from a young age, his education, his training, and even his public appearances were all carefully orchestrated to shape him into the next king. But Frederik struggled, at times overwhelmed by the crushing pressure to be perfect. He has spoken openly about battling anxiety and shyness during his youth, a rare admission from someone born to rule. In contrast, Joachim was the spare, a term familiar in royal circles, yet one that carries heavy emotional undertones. While he was also expected to serve the crown, the spotlight never shone on him in quite the same way. He pursued a military career, held diplomatic roles, and married into nobility. Yet, his efforts often seemed to go unnoticed in comparison to his elder brother's royal glow. Though close as boys, whispers of tension grew as they aged. Differences in personality, public perception, and perhaps parental attention began to wedge an invisible line between them. In the court of public opinion, Frederik was the gentle, introspective prince with a modern touch, destined for greatness. Joachim was the hard-working, often overlooked younger brother, quietly fulfilling his duties while grappling with the limitations of his royal rank. And then came the turning point, a moment when the unspoken fractures in the royal bond began to show themselves in unmistakable ways. In January 2024, Queen Margrethe II stunned the world by abdicating the throne after over 50 years of reign, a decision she described as a gift to the future of the monarchy. In her place, Crown Prince Frederik was crowned King Frederik X. While the world celebrated the dawn of a new royal era, the undercurrents of unease within the family began to ripple outward. Prince Joachim's reaction was notably reserved. In official photographs and appearances during the transition, his posture, facial expressions, and limited words spoke volumes. Rumors swirled in tabloids and royal circles alike. Was Joachim truly proud of his brother, or did he feel sidelined, a relic of the monarchy's past now cast into shadow? Just months before Queen Margrethe's abdication, she had stripped Joachim's children of their royal titles, an unprecedented move that sent shockwaves through Denmark. The Queen claimed it was to give her grandchildren greater freedom, but Joachim publicly expressed confusion and pain over the decision. The loss of titles was more than symbolic, it severed a connection to royal identity and lineage, leaving Joachim and his family feeling publicly diminished. He voiced his disappointment in interviews, breaking with the royal family's long tradition of silent acceptance. It was the first time in recent memory that a Danish royal had spoken so candidly, and the public took notice. In early 2024, Shortly after King Frederik's ascension and just months after his children's titles were stripped, Prince Joachim sat down for what many would later call one of the most vulnerable and honest royal interviews in Danish history. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't level accusations. But in his composed tone and carefully chosen words, there was a quiet storm of emotion. Speaking to Danish media, he expressed his bewilderment over the decisions that had redefined his family's standing. "It's not about prestige," he said. "It's about identity, about understanding where you belong. When that's taken away, what's left?" His words were dignified, yet wounded. He spoke not as a prince, but as a father, one watching his children stripped of titles they were born into, without consultation or clarity. And then came the subtle, unmistakable reference to his brother. "There are times," Joachim said, "when one feels more like an outsider in one's own family than a member of it." It wasn't a direct attack on King Frederik. But to those listening, the implications were clear. The younger prince felt abandoned, not just by the institution of monarchy, but by those closest to him. Joachim didn't seek sympathy. He didn't dwell in bitterness. What he conveyed was far more complicated. The emotional toll of living a life where loyalty, identity, and duty are expected to be unconditional, but not always reciprocated. For a family built on discretion, Joachim's candor was a cultural earthquake. And it left the public, and the press, divided. In Denmark, where the monarchy is cherished for its unity and modesty, Prince Joachim's words stirred passionate debates. Overnight, the country's media landscape was flooded with op-eds, talk shows, and social media threads, each dissecting what was said, and what was implied. Some viewed Joachim's statements as courageous, a breath of honesty in a world of curated perfection. They saw a man willing to speak his truth, to defend his children's dignity, and to challenge a system that seemed to favor silence over sincerity. Others, however, were less sympathetic. To them, Joachim's public airing of grievances was inappropriate, even disloyal. Critics questioned his timing. Why speak out now, just as his brother takes the throne? Was it jealousy or worse, an attempt to undermine King Frederik's early reign? Royal experts were called in to weigh the implications. Some noted that every monarchy has its growing pains, particularly when leadership transitions occur. Others saw a deeper crisis, a breakdown of communication and trust within a family that has long stood as a symbol of national cohesion. But regardless of where one stood, one fact remained undeniable. Prince Joachim's voice had pierced the royal veil, and Denmark would never see its royal family quite the same way again. It has been said that silence can speak louder than words, and in the case of King Frederik and Prince Joachim, silence has become its own kind of language. Since Frederik ascended the throne, public appearances featuring both brothers have been few and far between. At official ceremonies, they are often separated by protocol, space, and something more elusive, a sense of cold formality. Gone are the casual smiles, the knowing glances, the unguarded moments of shared history. In their place, carefully curated politeness. Behind the scenes, insiders speak of a relationship that has grown increasingly strained. There are reports, unconfirmed but persistent, that conversations between the two have become rare. Some say they communicate through intermediaries, not out of hostility, but because the emotional gap has become too wide to bridge with small talk and handshakes. When asked about his relationship with the new king, Joachim has remained diplomatic, but noticeably distant. "We are brothers," he said in a brief 2024 interview. "That bond is always there. But like any family, we go through phases. This is one of them." The subtext was unmistakable. Something had broken. Meanwhile, King Frederik has offered little in the way of public response. As monarch, he is bound by a tradition of discretion. He speaks in terms of national unity, progress, and legacy. Rarely does he acknowledge the personal rift that quietly shadows his new reign. To many observers, this silence is more than strategy, it's sorrow. For two brothers who once stood side by side, the present reality is one of emotional exile. And while the monarchy moves forward, the human story behind the palace walls tells a tale of unspoken grief, of roles inherited rather than chosen, and of love bruised by the cold machinery of tradition. The Danish royal feud may be headline news today, but it is far from unique. Across Europe's monarchies, royal families have long wrestled with the tension between duty and personal desire. In Britain, Prince Harry and Prince William's fallout has dominated global discourse, echoing themes eerily similar to those unfolding in Denmark. Questions of favoritism, identity, and the media's role in shaping public perception. In Sweden, royal siblings have occasionally clashed over roles, visibility, and the evolving structure of the monarchy. Even in Spain, where King Juan Carlos I abdicated amid scandal, his children have navigated the weight of legacy under intense public scrutiny. What these stories reveal is a common thread. When families are built into institutions, personal conflicts become national matters. Every choice, every conversation, every moment of hesitation becomes a potential headline. For Denmark, a country that prides itself on egalitarian values, the idea of royal favoritism, of one brother feeling less valued than another, strikes a particularly sensitive chord. The question then arises, can the Danish monarchy, so beloved for its stability and simplicity, survive if its public image begins to crack under the weight of private discord? In every royal tale, there comes a point when the sidelined figure must decide, retreat quietly into the shadows, or carve out a new identity on their own terms. For Prince Joachim, that moment has arrived. Following the controversy surrounding his children's titles and his increasingly distant relationship with King Frederik, Joachim made a decision that stunned many in Denmark. He and his family relocated to Washington, D.C., where he now serves in a senior diplomatic role at the Danish embassy. To the public, it appeared as both an escape and an assertion. On one hand, it allowed Joachim to remove himself from the intense scrutiny of Danish media and royal protocol. On the other, it signaled his desire to remain relevant, useful, to his country, even if from afar. In interviews, Joachim has described the move as a new chapter, emphasizing the importance of public service, education, and cultural exchange. But behind the optimism lies a deeper truth. This is a man navigating a quiet form of royal exile. He still holds the title of prince. He still carries the bloodline of Denmark's ancient monarchy. But in practice, his role has changed. He is no longer a working royal in the traditional sense. His family's place in the line of succession has been symbolically minimized. His children, once prince and princess, are now styled as count and countess. And yet, there is resilience in his voice, a hint of defiance, a refusal to let protocol define the full measure of his worth. Observers now ask, is Joachim Denmark's Prince Harry, a man determined to speak truth, even at the cost of tradition, or is he something else entirely, a figure forging a third path between obedience and rebellion? Time will tell. But one thing is clear. Prince Joachim is no longer content to simply play the part written for him by birth. He is rewriting his story. Whether the monarchy welcomes that change, or fears it, remains to be seen. For more than 5 decades, Queen Margrethe II reigned with poise, intellect, and a quiet strength that made her not only Denmark's longest reigning monarch, but one of Europe's most admired queens. Her love for history, art, and national identity earned her reverence across generations. But her greatest challenge may not have been diplomacy or governance, it was motherhood under a crown. As a monarch, Margrethe was a symbol. As a mother, she was human. And no decision tested the fragile intersection of those roles more than the one she made in 2022, removing royal titles from Prince Joachim's 4 children. The official explanation was laced in modern reasoning. The Queen stated it was for the benefit of her grandchildren, to give them the freedom to choose their own futures, unburdened by the expectations of royalty. But the emotional fallout was swift and deep. Joachim expressed his pain openly. He revealed that he was given short notice, and that his children, especially the youngest, were confused and hurt. "We are all affected," he said at the time. "It's never fun to see your children being mistreated like that." For Margrethe, the move may have been strategic, an attempt to slim down the monarchy, as other European royals had done. But the personal cost was high. The public watched as a queen's decision strained her relationship with her son, and her image as a maternal figure was quietly questioned. To her credit, Margrethe did not retreat from the storm. She acknowledged that the situation had been painful and stated, "I underestimated how deeply my family would be affected." It was a rare moment of vulnerability from a woman who had spent her life cloaked in stoic dignity. In her final year on the throne, Margrethe was faced with an unspoken irony. She had led a nation through decades of change, yet struggled to keep her own family united in the face of those same changes. Today, Her legacy is seen through two lenses. As queen, she is celebrated for her modernization of the monarchy. As mother, she is seen as a figure caught in a cruel balancing act, one where every choice risked wounding someone she loved. Her abdication, many believe, was not only an act of succession, but perhaps also an act of emotional preservation. For centuries, the Danish monarchy has been revered for its subtle strength. It didn't need grand spectacles or imperial declarations. It thrived on restraint, humility, and the quiet assurance that the crown was a unifying symbol, not a divisive force. But today, that image is being challenged, not by public revolt, not by scandal in the traditional sense, but by something far more modern: emotional transparency. In an age where global audiences expect authenticity and vulnerability from their leaders, the monarchy's long-standing code of discretion feels increasingly out of sync. Prince Joachim's candid remarks, once unthinkable in royal circles, resonated with many who saw their own family struggles mirrored in his experience. This shift reflects a broader tension faced by royal houses around the world: how to remain relevant in a society that values openness, without eroding the mystique that gives the monarchy its symbolic power. King Frederik X, now at the helm, represents a new generation of leadership. His popularity remains high, buoyed by his image as a relatable, modern monarch. He cycles to work. He speaks candidly about mental health. He and Queen Mary are often seen as the very embodiment of a fairy tale turned real. But even fairy tales need managing, and the internal fractures within the royal family present a critical test. If Frederik embraces transparency, does he risk further exposing family tensions? If he chooses tradition and silence, does he alienate a public that increasingly craves sincerity over ceremony? Some royal watchers believe this moment could be a turning point, one that forces the Danish monarchy to evolve or risk fading into ceremonial irrelevance. Others caution against overcorrecting, warning that too much openness could erode the institution's dignity. What is certain, however, is that the monarchy is no longer insulated. The age of deference is giving way to the age of dialogue. And with the public now emotionally invested in the personal lives of its royals, every decision, from palace appointments to public appearances, carries deeper symbolic weight. The Danish monarchy, once seen as the most stable in Europe, now stands at a quiet but crucial crossroads: stay the course, or chart a new path, one where hearts are not hidden behind crowns. In the digital age, royal families are no longer protected by the fortress walls of palaces. Their images, words, and missteps are instantly dissected, reshaped, and broadcast to the world within minutes. In Denmark, a country with a generally respectful press culture, the recent royal rift tested long-standing boundaries between public interest and personal privacy. From the moment Queen Margrethe announced the change in her grandchildren's titles, the media frenzy began. Front pages were filled with photos of Prince Joachim, stoic, somber, and, at times, visibly emotional. Talk shows buzzed with commentary. Opinion pieces debated whether this was a sign of progress or a betrayal of tradition. And when Joachim broke his silence, the media's role shifted dramatically, from simple reportage to full-blown analysis. Every sentence he spoke was parsed for subtext. Every family photograph was studied for signs of tension or warmth. Headlines swung between sympathetic and scathing. Some outlets praised Joachim's courage, calling his honesty a breath of fresh air in a palace known for poise over passion. Others accused him of airing private grievances, framing his comments as selfish or disruptive during a delicate time of transition. Meanwhile, King Frederik, who remained largely silent throughout, became a symbol of royal stoicism. Media coverage painted him in contrasting lights: a modern monarch rising above family drama, or a distant brother avoiding emotional reckoning. Even Queen Margrethe, once nearly untouchable in the public eye, found herself under the spotlight. Was she making bold reforms, or did she mishandle a family matter that could have been resolved quietly? Social media only intensified these dynamics. Hashtags like #TeamJoachim and #LongLiveTheKing flooded platforms. Influencers and commentators weighed in, often reducing a complex family saga to viral moments and meme-worthy quotes. Yet amid the noise, something deeper emerged: the public's craving for emotional authenticity. People weren't just reacting to decisions, they were reacting to how those decisions made the royal family feel. And the media, willingly or not, became the lens through which those feelings were magnified, distorted, and immortalized. This raises a critical question. Is the media simply reflecting public sentiment, or is it driving it? Perhaps the truth lies somewhere in between. The media has undoubtedly brought clarity to some issues and clouded others. It has amplified voices, like Joachim's, that might otherwise have gone unheard. But it has also, at times, turned a family's private pain into a public performance. As the royal family navigates its internal divisions, it must also grapple with a new reality: the press is no longer a passive observer. It is a powerful player, one that can elevate, question, or complicate the narrative with a single headline. Before we dive into how this generational divide is affecting the youngest members of the royal family, take a moment to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Here, we uncover the untold truths, the emotional undercurrents, and the full stories behind the headlines, stories that deserve to be told with depth, dignity, and clarity. So if you value royal insight with a journalistic touch, hit that subscribe button and be part of this growing community. Thank you.